Gauteng officials are this morning visiting families and victims of gender-based violence and femicide in Soweto. Authorities say this is to ensure that families are aware of the progress being made in these cases. Malungelo Booi is in Naledi for us. Malungelo, very good morning to you. I suppose Gauteng officials are trying to show that they are actually doing something and they care about the nature of these abuses.
That's right. In fact, officials began this campaign in August, where they visited various families and victims of gender-based violence in the province. What they're essentially doing, is to provide, as you rightfully said, an update of the cases to these families and the victims. So what they do is that they go to a house and interact with the parents or the relatives of those that have been victims of gender-based violence. Bear in mind, some of these victims have actually died. Some of them were raped. Some of them are actually still alive. So what authorities are actually doing is that they tell them how far the progress of these cases are. For example, if the case is still with the police, they'll tell them how far the investigation is in that regard. If the case is is already in court, they also tell them how advanced those court proceedings are. In the past, in fact, even today, police and officials still come under a lot of criticism from victims of crime who at times say they actually don't know the progress of the police investigations or the cases that involve their loved ones. So Gauteng officials, in fact, they began this campaign saying that they want to interact with the families, to show them, as you rightfully said, that they care.
I suppose one of the interactions that stand out for me is one incident that is in Soweto, the matter of Pule, as questions over the suspect and the case and how far it has moved. Let's talk a little bit about some of the families that the officials are expected to visit.
That's right. In fact, today, they've identified about 8 families that will be visited by these Gauteng officials. Some of them are here in Naledi, some are in Dobsonville. In fact, there's a case that involves a 15-year-old girl who was murdered here in Soweto. So authorities will also be visiting the families of that. They'll be visiting a woman who was also raped. They'll be visiting her and also updating her about the progress of the case. And also there's also a case of a woman who actually seems to be having a problem with the protection order that she had actually requested from authorities. Well, authorities will also be visiting her and also to update her in relation to that particular case. We've seen them in the past visiting families in Pretoria and as well as Ekurhuleni, also updating them about this particular, about the progress in their cases. This is quite important, especially considering the fact that we live in a country where gender-based violence and femicide is actually quite prevalent. If you look into the numbers, the latest crime statistics that were released by the police about 2 months ago, a month or 2 months ago, we know that in this country there are about over 2,000 women were killed. Some of those women are actually some of the victims that will be visiting their families today, which authorities will actually be interacting. If you look at those numbers, it tells you that a woman is killed in South Africa after every 3 hours. That's 5 times higher than the global average.